So was it your personal intention to block the border and not give up until all the mandates and restrictions were lifted, as is stated in this flyer?
It was never my intention to block the border. It was always our intention to create an inconvenience at the border in the afternoon of January the 29th.
But you would agree, based on this flyer, that it was some people's intention at least?
Based on this flyer, I could see that there were people who would have these intentions.
Good afternoon, everyone. William Diaz here with Rebel News, and today I'll walk you through the proceedings from the Emergencies Act inquiry on November 8th, the 19th day of the inquiry. This inquiry is taking place because Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act on peaceful protesters who were part of the Freedom Convoy back in February 2022, who were simply protesting federal COVID-19 mandates. You can see and support our independent coverage at truckercommission.com. Now, the witnesses who appeared in front of the commission on the 8th were OPP Superintendent Dana Early, a man named Paul, an anti-minded protester who took part of the blockades of the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor, Ontario, connecting Canada to Detroit, and Coutts border blockade protester Marco Van Hugenbos, who took part of the blockade at the border between Coutts, Alberta and Sweetgrass, Montana. All three gave very interesting testimonies. Marco is still awaiting his trial since he was charged with mischief over $5,000. You can learn more and support him and his two other co-defendants at truckerdefensefund.com. The Crown wants him to spend 10 years in jail. Let's begin by taking a short look at the highlights from the three witnesses' testimonies.
Obviously, that was a concern of mine, that if we had to use the plan of action, that I wanted the lowest amount of children to be there. Intelligence was able to provide me with areas that they had detected where the children were hanging out or were present in the protest. They were also able to tell me that because of their intelligence, because of their overwatch, that the majority of the children went home at night, and very little of them stayed overnight.
I mean, there would be music. The national anthem would be sung, periodically. There would be food being shared amongst anybody and everybody that was wanted to be part of that. Generally just a peaceful gathering of people that were there for various reasons.
This is some, there was more. Every dirt road leading to Highway 4 would have had a checkpoint. So these may be the majority of the gravel roads, but there were more entrances and exits that were being monitored by the RCMP or stakeholders in this. So,
Superintendent Dana Early from the OPP was grilled by Alan Honor, lawyer with the Democracy Fund, a Canadian registered charity focused on civil liberties. Take a look at how that little exchange went.
Superintendent Early, you can tell me though that, and to the credit of you and your team, that you managed to get this blockade at the Ambassador Bridge cleared within 2 days of your appointment as CIC.
Yes.
And you would agree with me then that you and your team managed to resolve one of the most urgent priorities in the country without the benefit of the Emergencies Act.
Correct.
Thank you.
Now, what is arguably the most interesting thing that came up was the evidence shown by Honor. Indeed, the document presented is a transcript of a phone call between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Ontario Premier Doug Ford. In the document, you can see Trudeau deliver derogatory remarks regarding the protesters who were there. He stated that he wondered if they were less intelligent people. Ford also explained that he had trouble with the tools currently available to him handling the Windsor blockade properly. Trudeau even reminded him that everything should be able to be taken care of with the resources and legal tools that were already available. Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act on the protesters in Ottawa days after this phone call. Following Early's testimony appeared in front of the committee, Paul, the protester who was at the Windsor blockade during the convoy. Paul also claimed that the mainstream media exaggerating the number of trucks that were on the ground at Windsor. Take a look at his testimony.
Videos or clips on the mainstream media showing trucks like backed up across the Ambassador Bridge beyond that first night, which I think they cleared the Ambassador Bridge within 12 hours or so on that first night. So that was never going on the rest of the week. There was only like 4 to 6 semi-trucks that were involved in impeding or blockading traffic on that southbound Huron Church area. And it certainly the coverage certainly seemed to make it sound like it was much larger in scale and scope than that.
Paul, generally speaking, provided a short insight as to what the situation on the ground was from his recollection and explained that the allegations that protesters used children as human shields were false.
After 9 o'clock at night, no, I didn't see anybody that would be considered a child. I mean, there might have been some teenagers there, but no, it was usually an adult crowd when I would arrive.
Okay. Did you ever hear anyone suggest that children could be used as human shields?
No.
Finally came Marco van Hugenbos from the Coutts border blockade. Marco testified that he remembers Coutts protesters having a great ongoing dialogue with the residents of the village. Marco was not an organizer of the protest, but was designated as the spokesperson for truckers present there.
And the mandates, they messed with our lives. Like, we see the inconsistencies of the experts, and I don't necessarily blame them. The information provided was what they went off of, and that information is at times now no longer factual either. Things, the ball kept on getting pushed further down the road. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and look at where we are now.
Marco also stated that while the government seemingly was unwilling to discuss and negotiate with the protesters, they were willing to discuss and also create a plan, and they had a lawyer, Chad Williamson, with them to help negotiate. We know from the testimonies we heard in the past 4 weeks that almost all levels of government were unwilling to engage with the protesters, while these protesters at Coutts were willing to engage as well.
Premier Kenney did make an announcement on February 8th that the provincial government was announcing a plan for a gradual easing of the pandemic-related public health measures. Is that right?
Correct, and based on our response to his message, it was not the message we were looking for.
And what was his message and what was the message you were looking for?
The message that Kenney gave was, it was a phased approach with a lot of maybes. And there was no surety of anything in that message. It spoke to a lot of different aspects, and there was a lot of different methods to back out of that phased approach. But it was something, because they had to address, there was pressure. Even though we weren't communicating, there was pressure. Coutts did apply pressure to the provincial government. And this was not just exclusively Coutts. This was, the evidence is submitted to the slow rolls in Edmonton, to the protests of 5,000 to 10,000 in Calgary, the inconveniences on highways all over the province. Obviously, the focus is on Coutts, Ottawa, Emerson, Ambassador, Sarnia, etc. But Albertans were frustrated, and they were making it very aware to their government that they wanted to see change. So we were willing to have those discussions and to work on a realistic plan.
For more on the situation with the truckers who are the Coutts border blockade, protesting COVID-19 mandates, which includes Marco, visit truckerdefensefund.com. For Rebel News, this is William Diaz. If you want to find all of our coverage of the Trucker Commission, the emergency inquiry that is happening here in Ottawa for the next few weeks, visit truckercommission.com.